Hello and welcome to the podcast Life Without Limits. Now, this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people who have been through tough times and come out the other side to achieve great things. Now, I've got a great guest for you today. His name is Sam Lycett, and Sam Lycett was doing motocross around the national grid, competing in motocross around the country until he had a tragic accident and he lost the use of his left wrist. 1 year on from his accident, he's now competing in adaptive CrossFit around the country, lifting heavy weights and competing in competitions. So, hi Sam, how are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you, Jan?
Thanks for joining us today.
No
So tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Basically, I'm 24. I'm from Weymouth. I loved sport and training sort of all my life. I started motocross when I was 6 racing, but I actually first rode a bike when I was 4. So sort of every weekend since then I was involved with it, loved it, and yeah, always sort of competing or locally riding, training, trying to get as good as you can, basically, just loving it. And then up until last year in March 2022. I actually unfortunately had a crash and extended my wrist, come around a corner, sort of got a bad start in the race, trying to go as fast as I could, flipped over, landed on my hands, and I dislocated the lunate bone in my wrist and ruptured the ligaments. And from there, it's sort of been a bit uncertain for the whole last year, really. And now I can't ride, and grip strength's poor and a lot of pain in the left wrist.
So for those that don't know what motocross is motocross kind of is on a motorbike but on a dirt track kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you're jumping off
racing.
hills and things.
Yeah, so all sorts of different sand, like sand, mud, wet, dry, and then jumps and bumps everywhere. So quite chaotic, but it's always been good fun.
And how kind of fast are you going?
Quite hard to tell. We don't actually have a speedo on a bike because it's all more. We've got to be real focused, not worrying about speeds. But probably, I'd say you may average around 40 mile an hour, and considering you're all off road, it's quite gnarly. There's people all around you. Yeah. So about 40 mile an hour, probably average. But
so before your actual incident, what was the worst kind of injury or crash you had before? Did you have anything?
Yeah, I actually did. I fractured my ulnar, which on the same side actually when I was 16. Just had a sort of similar fall, crashed going along the straight and put my hands out against. It's quite a common thing, motocross injuries, hands, arms, wrists. So you put them out first when you're sort of flailing around. So yeah, I fractured my ulnar, but that was the worst I've had, and then sort of a few concussions, bit of head injuries.
It's still pretty kind of recent. It was only last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So March. So it's only, what is it now? It's sort of 18 months, roughly.
18 months, yeah. So how did the crash happen? You was going too fast around the corner, trying to overtake everyone.
And then hit a bit of a wall and just flipped, yeah.
So did you go flying through the air?
Yeah, literally just sort of catapulted off the front, and I must have, it's sort of so fast, all a bit of a blur, but I must have just put my hands out, and as I hit the floor, the left wrist got pushed back the most. So I landed and sat up, and I was like, oh no. Like, I just felt my wrist ache, like it's like an ache straight away, and just felt a bit like crunchy. And I was like, I don't know, I've done something good here. So
that sounds crazy.
You sort of know when you've done yourself in proper. And I was like, okay, I'm done for the race. And then the medics come over and like, we need to get your bike out of the way. And it's like, well, I can't move that. I just had to walk across.
So what, straight after your accident, did you stand up and start walking, or did they just take you into the ambulance?
I sat up for a bit, and then, yeah, they were like, what do you want to do? Because I was at the top side of the track and we had to go down to the bottom of the hill. He said, can you walk? What, do you want to walk down? And I was like, oh, I'll sit in the truck. So I sat in the truck, sort of holding my arm up, and then got taken down to the main ambulance, which is always off the track, where they can sort of seat you, and then the paramedics can get back on and move around the track in the Jeep. So, yeah, and then when I went and seen the main medics, they were like, he was feeling around and sort of moving it, but didn't quite clock what had happened at that point, because it was all very internal. You couldn't really see because it was the lunate right inside the middle of my wrist. You couldn't really see. There was only a bit of swelling, and it was just really stiff. So.
And how does that affect you kind of nowadays?
Now, so essentially, like, even sort of daily tasks, like sort of the action of, for example, trying to squeeze some toothpaste on, as soon as I squeeze anything, it just feels like, I don't know if you ever like bruised a bone, or when you smack your shin, it's really hard and it feels really bruised, like inside my wrist just feels like a bony ache all the time as soon as I squeeze it, really. and I've only got that much flexion in it, and then extension's a lot worse as well.
So that must affect you when you're weightlifting and lifting weights as well then.
Yeah, essentially. So anything, I sort of 20 kilo barbell is sort of the max I can strict press overhead. So mainly now I'm just trying to do whatever I can with the left, or strap something around the elbow to move that, and then focus on right arm strength really.
So when you're doing CrossFit, do you mainly focus just using one arm?
Yeah, essentially. I have sort of following, and I've met you guys at the comp, and Henry, he's a really good guy to follow, Henry Dunn. I'm sort of taking on what they're doing in the top level ones, so like sort of Casey Hickory and those guys, seeing what they can do with like a strap around the elbow joint, taking as much of that as I can and adapting all the movements. So yeah, slow process. Took me a while to sort of get into it. At first I was a bit like, don't want to do anything, which is hard when you've had that injury, but then sort of now I'm overcoming that, figuring what I can do, figuring out.
What a common kind of theme with everyone I've spoken to so far, so as soon as they went to the hospital, everyone's quite negative, saying you can't do this, you can't do that
straight away. So
they don't see the positive side of things.
No. So literally when I had to have the lunate actually pop back in, because that was pressing on, I believe it's called the radial nerve or median nerve, and that's what sort of supplies your thumb and your fingers next to it, and they were starting to tingle and go numb when I got there. So the bone that had popped out was pressing on that, and they said we need to pop that back in before that causes any damage to the nerve. And then the next day they came round to sort of check me, see how I was feeling, like the fingers were coming back. And then they said, we're going to have to operate on you. But basically the consultant was, how important is your wrist to you? And I was like, that's not a very positive question to be asking. So I was like, well, I'm a personal trainer and CrossFit coach. So pretty important, because I need to use my limbs as best I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a bit negative for him to be coming around saying that, but yeah.
So did you kind of think after this accident, that's the end of my job, that's the end of what am I going to do now?
Personally, I was sort of like, he's just saying that I'll be fine. Like, I'm sort of one I've been really lucky, to be fair. Like, even though I've been motocross since I was 6, I've had a lot of injuries, like other people or hear or see about. So I've been quite lucky, not too serious with injuries, and I've trained CrossFit since 2017. I started training. So then up until then, never really got any injuries CrossFit, I was very lucky, quite mobile and quite good agility and stuff. So yeah, I got away with injuries. So I thought at the time, I was like, I'll be fine. Like, I'll just be in a cast for a few weeks and then I'll be back to it. And then sort of over the time, the realization sort of hit. It's like, oh no, he was like, your wrist's never going to be like it was. So it's been really hard, actually, more so than I thought. I sort of put it to the back of my mind, but over the last sort of year, it's been, it's serious, because I can't really.
I've actually gone back to motocross since.
Not since, no. I would like to, but I just know the pain I have and the discomfort, and I can sort of, if I do something heavy with it, I feel it sort of shift where the ligaments aren't holding it, and it grinds. So I know I wouldn't be able to.
Do they do adaptive bikes where you could just do something from like one side of one arm or something?
Yeah, there is a lad actually sort of locally to where I am in Dorset. He has an amputated arm. I'm not sure if it's from the forearm down or if he's got the elbow joint, but he actually has an adaptive bike where he's got a quick release plug-in, and he can actually ride, and all the controls that hand control, so your clutch and your brake lever on his forearm side, and then he's just got a quick release plug-in, so he can still ride. It's really impressive, yeah.
So maybe one day that'd be something you could do if you want to get back into it.
Yeah, there's things you can do, but then also in next week actually, I've got an appointment with a consultant again to decide on surgery coming up. So possibly a full fusion is going to be looking like the best option for me, really, which means the wrist will just be solidified where it is.
Yeah. But
Which hopefully then
won't be able to use it as much.
No, I would have a lot less movement, but in theory, they said I probably would be able to put more load through it. So I've got to weigh up the options and technically see if
it works for you. Yeah. So the next question would be, what have been some of the biggest obstacles you have faced, and how have you overcome them?
So this is definitely it so far. Like I did it say, I've been very lucky, sort of got through things quite easily, not too many injuries, and quite able with things I did, like different sports. So definitely having the wrist injury is the hardest thing. And I think for me, probably where I'm coaching quite a lot, I'm down at Portland Beach CrossFit, and I was really lucky there. So Rich and Liz, the owners, were like, there's no question about it. They were like, no, you can still work for us. We'll know you'll find a way to work around it. Was really helpful. But the biggest obstacle, I think, was probably where I'm involved in it a lot and always coaching. I didn't actually train a lot myself to begin with, because I was always waiting, like, oh, my wrist will be all right soon, then I'll start training. And that was like a big thing for me. So I was always like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll get back to it when I can. And then it's not until this year when I've sort of really realised, no, I'm not going to be able to get back to it if I don't now trying to adapt. So I think that's been the biggest obstacle for me.
And just finding new ways and how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, sort of mentally, just like, no, this is what you've got to deal with now, and just keep training, because if you don't, I'll just end up staying stagnant and not get anywhere.
So what would you say to date is your biggest, proudest achievement? You can have more than one if you think of more than one.
For me, it would probably be becoming a coach, because when I was younger, when I was sort of 16, going through college and A levels and stuff, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and ended up not finishing my A levels and thinking, oh, all my friends are in A levels, I've got to get a proper job or something like that. And then I ended up getting an apprenticeship, completely different to what the A levels I did, because I dropped out of that. And then I was in the apprenticeship, and it was an engineering apprenticeship, and I was like, I really don't really want to be doing this for the next 4 years. I couldn't do that either. So I only did that for 6 months. So then I left that. And then at the time I was like, well, I'm 18. I've not got anything coming up, not got a job. So I got a job at Tesco. And then in the meantime, went back to college and managed to get into a foundation degree in sport coaching, which my mum actually sort of got me into and really pushed me to do. And then from there, I just kept going with it and started CrossFit and started really liking it. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do this. And Rich, the owner, sort of was always pushing me like, oh, I would like you to be a coach. And then from there in 2020, just post-COVID, I actually became a coach. And it was sort of, I was proud of that, because for me, it was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought, I've got to get a proper job, or what people would assume is a proper job or a career. And I thought, well, I can't do just coaching and make that a living. But I have so far. So I do personal training and CrossFit coaching. So yeah, I'm proud of that, because I'm still doing that despite the
Yeah, the good thing is, even after your injury, they still kind of support you and help you.
They've been great. Yeah,
because I find the fitness industry is probably one of the industries that don't always include disabilities, especially anyway.
Yeah, and even for me, so I was very able beforehand. And yeah, I didn't see a lot of it, if I'm honest, or I didn't come across it a lot. A lot of people, especially CrossFit, people have that perception of CrossFit. I think, well, I can't even do that. I've got to be fit before I even do that. But now knowing what I can still do with the adaptation and going to the competition, the adapt competition we were at, seeing the people there is really amazing, like what they can overcome. So, yeah,
honestly, that you just to see all kind of ranges of abilities, just going out and smashing it was inspiring to see.
Yeah, it was really good.
So what would you say to somebody that feels they're unable to reach their full ability because of their disability?
I'd say you can. There's always a way, and there's always a level you can work towards. And when I had the injury, I contacted Casey, because he was sort of the only person I knew about at the time that was lower limb, and he's actually was born with no lower limb on one side, upper limb on one side, his forearm. I contacted him, and one of the comments he made to me was like even if you can't improve, like, why not try? Because at least then you're doing something. So if you're trying to always get better, or try and be fitter, or do something, that act of doing it is you getting better. You know what I mean? So you don't, and even if you're really struggling with certain things, like, you can always find a way to do something. So I really like that point he made, and I think, yeah, there's always a way to get better. So just try.
Yeah. So no matter what injury you may have,
yeah,
give every single thing you go. Give every single thing a go. Even because you might find not everything works, but you'll find something that you excel at that maybe you never thought existed before.
Yeah, and then just stick with it and keep going. And if you enjoy that, then why not? If you're sat at home or whatever thinking I can't do any of that, then you're never going to know, are you? So always
And
try.
I think this is the good thing about adaptive CrossFit. It's just the start for us, and we're
Yeah,
just showing the world what we can really do. And I think
yeah,
it can grow to big things.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's amazing, especially seeing, like I said, seeing some of the people what they could do despite what they've overcome.
Mm.
Because for me, I know I've still got that adaptation I need to make, but I was sort of sport I really liked, and I'm not the most adaptive person because I still got use of the wrists. And like Henry I met has completely lost his arm in a tragic accident. So seeing people like that still going for it and still trying to improve when I've sort of just had a wrist injury doing something I love doing all the time, it puts it into perspective. Like I've not got half the worries of some other people as well. So there's always a way. So keep going.
And in a way, your injury would make you a better personal trainer, because you
Yeah,
can now think of the ways that everyone can do it, but you can also think of different ways so you can adapt it for anyone that thinks they can't do it.
yeah, yeah. That's very true. Yeah, there's always something, because there's different, even if it's not necessarily an injury or someone's had to go and have surgery and they've just got to work around it and rehab that, like that can really bring that back in too, because it's like you can, now you're aware of being adaptive. You know, if someone's had a surgery to this certain area, you can really work on this in the meantime until that recovers. And then someone that is fully adaptive, now you know that as well, you can say, no, I've worked around this, so you can definitely work around what you've got.
Exactly. There's always a way.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What are you looking to do in the future now?
I'd really like to keep going with the CrossFit as best I can. Like I said, if I decide to have the fusion, that will then sort of change as well in the future. It'll probably be a recovery process to that, and obviously the bones will need to then fuse and pain will need to drop, and then see how the training can change from then. And then I'd really like to just keep going with like competitions everywhere. I find them really fun, even if there's a few. I think there's a charity one coming up as well that's just there to raise awareness. I'd love to do that, just to go there basically and meet different people, see what they can do, and then see how
Yeah.
far I can get with my own adaptive training, and then also just progress up with CrossFit. So I'm also currently going to do the British weightlifting course to assist with coaching at CrossFit, and then hopefully
Oh,
go on to
nice.
CrossFit level 2 as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's your next competition? Are you doing the pairs event coming up in
Yeah,
September?
so I've entered the adaptive pairs comp. I
I
entered that
think
one.
I think this will be a really big competition coming up as well.
Yeah, that should be good.
For those of
And
you
then
that don't know, it's there's 60 athletes coming together. So it's you get an adaptive athlete and an able-bodied athlete, and they're going to pair together, and we're going to do a competition in September the 10th, and it's going to be mental. I think everyone's going to go
yeah,
for it. It's going to be a big competition.
yeah. Where's the location exactly again?
It's in Wolfham. No, it's in St Albans.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that would be great. And then just be able to see all sorts of
yeah,
people that are able and not as able working together as well. So it just shows
exactly.
how useful CrossFit can be, because no matter what your impairment, everyone can do this workout in the same sort of way and have the same sort of enjoyment and benefit from it.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to come and watch and support all of us competing, come down to St Albans, and you'll leave thinking, what have I just seen? Wow. That's how I left our last competition.
Yeah, definitely.
So if people want to connect with you, or see what you do, how are they able to reach you or find you?
So I coach at Portland Beach CrossFit, so you could either find Portland Beach CrossFit on Instagram. It's just standard Portland Beach CrossFit. My own PT stuff, my brand is, because my motocross number was always 441 for many years. So my personal training brand is 41 Fitness. Literally just plain text 41 Fitness. F as in actually written out, not the numbers. Spelled out 41 Fitness, and then my Instagram name is Sam Lycett. So any of those sort of social media pathways, you can find it and find 41 Fitness. I've also got a website 41fitness.com, where you can find what I'm doing as a personal trainer and coaching as well.
Oh, cool. So if anyone wants to get in contact with Sam or watch what he does in his own training, or if you go into his Instagram, he puts all his personal training stuff up there. Get in contact with him. Even if you want to use him as a personal trainer, get in contact. I guess I'll see you at the competition coming up soon in a few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks very much for letting me speak.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. I'll see
Nice
you
to chat
soon.
again. Thanks, Ant.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.